Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a closer look at the fast-moving reports coming out of the Russia-Ukraine war, including claims about major battlefield setbacks, new political tremors inside Russia, and the rumored tensions involving Ramzan Kadyrov. As always, nothing in this script should be taken as confirmed fact unless verified by multiple independent sources. This is a breakdown of what is being discussed, what analysts are saying, and what these developments could mean moving forward. Many recent reports claim that Ukrainian forces have delivered a significant blow to one of Russia's more experienced units. While details vary depending on the source, several analysts suggest that Ukraine's tactical flexibility, along with better coordination from drones, artillery, and small infantry groups, has allowed them to pressure Russian formations that were once considered highly capable. Even though Elite Force is a broad label often used by the media, the claim highlights how the battlefield dynamic continues to shift as Ukraine adapts. Some commentators argue that this Ukrainian momentum stems from a combination of Western-supplied weapons, improved battlefield intelligence, and a focus on disrupting Russian logistics. Instead of meeting large Russian units head-on, Ukraine appears to be chipping away through precision strikes and mobility. This strategy has reportedly caused Russian commanders to relocate more experienced troops to plug gaps, which in turn spreads those units thinner across the front. Russian-aligned sources often deny heavy losses and describe the situation differently, so it's important to understand that the reality likely lies somewhere between opposing narratives. What is clear, however, is that the conflict continues to be unpredictable, and both sides are pushing hard to claim psychological advantage with every public announcement. At the same time, discussions have intensified around internal tensions inside Russia, particularly involving Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov. Over the years, Kadyrov has publicly expressed loyalty to Moscow, but he has also shown willingness to challenge or criticize parts of Russia's military leadership. The latest wave of reports suggests new strain between Kadyrov and President Putin, though the exact extent of that tension is difficult to verify. Some analysts see these claims as political theater, while others view them as indicators of deeper fractures in Russia's power structure. According to several geopolitical observers, if Kadyrov is indeed voicing dissatisfaction or resisting Kremlin directives, it could reflect pressures building from the prolonged war. Regional leaders who rely heavily on military prestige and public displays of strength may feel compelled to distance themselves from unpopular decisions or battlefield failures. Even rumors of internal discord can have ripple effects, influencing morale among troops and shaping how foreign governments interpret the stability of Russia's leadership. Ukraine, for its part, has been quick to highlight any sign of division inside Russia. Kyiv understands that political fractures can be just as impactful as battlefield victories. If Russian commanders or regional leaders are competing for influence or struggling to execute unified strategies, that could give Ukraine more room to maneuver. However, it's also worth noting that Russia has a long history of keeping internal disputes under tight control, so public speculation may not fully reflect what is actually happening behind closed doors. As these narratives unfold, Ukraine continues to emphasize that any tactical success builds toward a larger goal, wearing down Russia's ability to sustain its invasion. Ukrainian officials often argue that every disrupted supply route, every damaged command post, and every pressured unit contributes to a long-term weakening of Russian capabilities. This war is not only about territory, but about endurance, resources, political stability, and international support. Still, Ukrainian victories do not automatically translate into rapid breakthroughs. The front lines remain heavily fortified, and both sides face shortages in manpower and ammunition. Even when Russia experiences setbacks, it often responds with intensified attacks or redeployment of reinforcements. This push-and-pull dynamic has created a grinding, almost cyclical pattern where short bursts of Ukrainian momentum are followed by periods of renewed Russian pressure. Meanwhile, the international community is watching closely. Western nations continue to debate the level of military aid needed to keep Ukraine resilient. Some countries argue that increased support is essential to prevent Russian advances, while others advocate for negotiated solutions to de-escalate the conflict. These political shifts abroad influence how quickly Ukraine receives equipment and how much leverage it holds in diplomatic conversations. Inside Russia, economic conditions and public opinion also play a role. Extended conflict demands enormous resources, and sanctions have strained several sectors of Russia's economy. Although the government emphasizes stability and national unity, analysts still point to subtle signs of fatigue among the population. For leaders like Kadyrov, maintaining internal loyalty becomes more challenging when the war drags on longer than expected. At the same time, Ukraine uses strategic communication to maintain confidence among its own population. Highlighting victories, especially against widely recognized Russian units, helps strengthen morale and reinforce the narrative that resistance is succeeding. This communication strategy is critical because public resilience is a major component of Ukraine's overall capacity to continue fighting. Rumors about widening rifts among Russian leadership figures have sparked intense debate among political specialists. Some believe these tensions are exaggerated for effect, while others insist that years of centralized control and battlefield strain may be pushing rival factions into more open disagreement. If Kadyrov is indeed challenging Putin's approach or resisting certain military directives, that could become one of the most significant internal developments since the start of the war. Still, it's important to approach these claims cautiously. So, authoritarian systems often present a unified face even when internal power struggles exist. And sometimes narratives about rebellion or rivalry are amplified by outside sources seeking strategic advantage. Without transparent confirmation, these stories remain part of a complex information environment. Another key aspect of recent discussions is how Ukraine has refined its use of drones and precision-guided weapons. These tools have allowed Ukraine to target high-value Russian equipment, including armored vehicles and command centers, with increasing accuracy. The loss of such hardware forces Russia to adapt, sometimes relocating more experienced forces to compensate, which contributes to the perception that elite units are being stretched thin or facing heightened attrition. On the other hand, Russia continues to adapt its own tactics. Despite reported setbacks, Russia maintains significant manpower and military resources. In many areas of the front, Russia has invested heavily in layered defenses, trenches, electronic warfare, and minefield. This means that even when Ukraine achieves local victories, advancing deeper remains extremely difficult without substantial support. International analysts are divided on whether the current developments signal a turning point. Some argue that Ukrainian tactical successes combined with political strain inside Russia could eventually lead to larger shifts on the battlefield. Others caution that while notable, these events may not fundamentally change the strategic balance unless accompanied by sustained breakthroughs or major shifts in international policy. Meanwhile, global media coverage tends to amplify the most dramatic narratives, such as phrases like elite force crushed or Kadyrov rises against Putin, even when the underlying reality is more nuanced. While such headlines attract attention, they can also distort public perception of the actual situation. War is rarely shaped by a single event. Instead, it evolves through a series of smaller, interconnected developments. Regardless of how the specific claims unfold, one thing remains certain: both sides are locked in a long and exhausting conflict. Ukraine aims to maintain momentum through precision, adaptation, and international backing. Russia continues to rely on massive resources, entrenched positions, and political control to sustain its operations. The outcome of this war will be shaped not just by battlefield tactics, but by politics, alliances, public morale, and economic endurance. The reports about Ukrainian forces pushing back a well-trained Russian unit, if accurate, reflect Ukraine's determination to continue resisting despite overwhelming challenges. The rumors about Kadyrov and Putin, if grounded in reality, hint at possible internal friction within Russia's leadership. Both narratives, whether partially true or exaggerated, influence how the war is perceived and how both sides plan their next moves. As we continue to follow these unfolding stories, it's crucial to distinguish between confirmed information, unverified claims, and politically motivated narratives. The fog of war makes it difficult to know the full truth behind every announcement. What matters most is understanding the broader context and recognizing that each report fits into a larger, ongoing struggle. Thank you for watching, and make sure to stay informed from multiple reliable sources as these developments continue to evolve.